How do you maintain energy and focus without burning out? And what advice would you give others facing similar pressures?
That's such an important question, Warren, because burnt out is real, especially in cybersecurity. The pace is fast, the stakes are high, and the pressure is always on and can wear you down if you're not careful. One simple tool that has helped me and that I often recommend is to make two lists: one for activities to train your energy, and one for those that give your energy. And be mindful on how your day went. If you experienced activities that drain your energy, be mindful that you do something for yourself that give you energy so that you could never, be burnt out, and you always can, go back to negative, zero, not negative, but even positive. This sounds basic, but it's incredibly powerful for building self awareness. And when you can really see what tasks or people or habits leave you feeling depleted and which ones re energize and motivate you, it becomes easier to set boundaries and make intentional choices on how you spend your time and attention. For me personally, I've learned that I need to protect my creative and reflective time, whether that's through quiet moments of faith, being taxi mommy with my kids, or even just a coffee chat with my friends. Those are small things, but they keep me grounded and connected to my why. And honestly, as leaders, we also need to be okay with not doing everything ourselves. Delegation isn't a weakness, it's trust. It's empowering others so that the whole team can grow and not just carry the weight alone. So if you're in a high pressure role, my advice would be: get to know yourself, protect your energy, and give yourself permission to pause. Leadership is not about running on empty. It's about being present, intentional, and sustainable over the long run.
Secure CyberConnect are thrilled to be part of this exclusive invite-only event for senior security leaders at the Cyber Leaders Summit. This private curated forum brings together decision makers and thought leaders focused on real challenges, strategic leadership and peer-driven conversations. It's your chance to be part of meaningful discussions on breach stories, evolving regulations, well-being and the future of cybersecurity. Join us by registering your interest now. Link in the bio. We'd love to see you there. This is the Secure CyberConnect podcast with Jay Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information, cybersecurity, technology and talent acquisition professionals who share their journeys, unique perspectives and offer advice and guidance. Our topics on this episode will be resilient by design, motherhood, leadership and diversity, as well as some global cybersecurity insights. Today we're thrilled to be joined by Charmaine Tumalad. Charmaine is an information security and risk leader with over 25 years experience within information security, governance and compliance, including 15 years holding various senior roles across financial and industrial sectors. As a global information security risk and compliance manager at Bridgestone EMEA, she drives enterprise-wide risk management, regulatory compliance and resilience strategies. Certified in ISO 27001, NIST 2, CFE and business continuity, Charmaine has led cross-regional security programs and third-party risk initiatives across Europe, America and Asia. Born in the Philippines and based in Brussels for over 20 years, she's a proud mother of two and a Catholic whose faith guides her through many of life's challenges. Passionate about diversity, lifelong learning and empowering women in STEM, Charmaine balances professional rigour with creativity, resilience and a strong commitment to integrity. Charmaine, welcome to the Secure CyberConnect podcast and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay and Warren.
No, really looking forward to today's session. And as we kick things off, could you give the audience a high-level overview of what we're going to be looking at discussing and exploring today, please?
Yes, absolutely. So in today's conversation, we'll be diving into the human and cultural aspects of information security. Topics like diversity, resilience, well-being, leadership,
These are the areas that often get overshadowed by the technical side of cybersecurity, but I think they are absolutely critical. We'll explore what it means to build a resilient organization, not just through systems and controls, but through people, through inclusive teams, supportive work cultures, and leaders who value emotional intelligence as much as technical know how. We'll also touch on cross cultural intelligence, something I believe is a true superpower in global leadership these days, and how life experiences like immigration, motherhood can actually shape and strengthen leadership in ways we don't talk about enough. So it's going to be a mix of security insights, personal experiences, and practical ideas for creating a stronger and more inclusive organizations from inside out.
No, it all sounds fascinating, and we're really looking forward to getting into the discussion. And could you perhaps share with us something that you're either proud of or excited about that isn't featured on your LinkedIn?
Yes. As an information security officer, there is really, very minimal information that you'll get out of my LinkedIn. So I have to say that, I'm incredibly proud of our IT and security team in Bridgestone EMEA. One of our big achievement was successfully rolling out the information security management system across several countries in the region, which led to us earning a TSAX certification. And for those who might not know, TSAX is a key information security standard in the automotive industry, developed by ENX, the European Automotive Association, and VDA, the German Automotive Association. And it's something that really reflects the maturity and commitment of our security practices. But what stands out even more for me is the organizational culture that we've built in Bridgestone. There's a genuine focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a real respect to work-life balance. It's this kind of environment where you're motivated to grow and contribute, and you're given the space and support to thrive and be, your authentic self. And now with the merger of EMEA and the Americas, forming what we call the West region in Bridgestone, we're entering this new chapter with its own set of challenges, of course. But I see it's a huge opportunity for us to collaborate even more broadly and to take our work to the next level together. Now, personally, I have renovated a house and I'm proud that my kids and I did all the finishing of the house with just our muscles, some mechanical tools, and a lot of food and a lot of fun. We also built a garden house just ourselves. I've learned how to work an electric saw, so it seems that I'm expanding my skills in the male dominated world, not just in the workplace, but totally spilling over my personal life as well. And I can say that it's completely doable, and I'm quite excited about it.
No, that's all great. Well, first and foremost, congratulations to you and the team. It sounds like an exciting period, and it is really encouraging to hear an organization really putting their people first. And of course, you're having that work-life balance is important. And it sounds like you've got a few hobbies that you're picking up and tools as well in the background to help you keep that mental resilience. And with that in mind, could you share with us a significant challenge that you faced in your career that's influenced both through their perspective and your views on cybersecurity?
Yeah, so as a woman in IT, a Filipino living in Belgium, and a single mom, it's fair to say that the challenges I've faced are pretty significant and often ongoing. And as I reflect on this question, it's actually quite hard to pinpoint what is the most significant challenge. So I think I can share two. So I think the first one, as a country security officer for Royal Bank of Scotland, that was from 2010 to 2017. The incidents that I've experienced was actually far from cyber incidents. They were really on a personal and physical incident level, such as terrorist attacks in Brussels and in France, and even a bomb threat warning to our building. And that made me realize that being a cybersecurity officer and only covering, your digital assets is just half, of the controls that you can put in the organization. You should also focus on the people and on your physical security as well. And that's such, an eye opener. And the second one was when I transitioned from the finance industry into the manufacturing industry. I felt like I stepped into a whole new world. My first role in Bridgestone EMEA was an information security risk manager, and I was tasked right away with implementing ISMS in 3 countries. They're Belgium, Germany, and Italy. And to be honest, moving into the manufacturing industry, a space that's still very male dominated, added definitely another layer of complexity to my journey. But here's the thing, despite all those factors, I never really experienced discrimination based on my gender or background in Bridgestone, and quite the opposite, actually. I was recognized for the quality of my work, and that meant really a lot. And this project that I have led ended up being nominated for an internal innovation award, and we proudly won and took the third place, just behind Bridgestone's women's network, so I can't really complain. And honestly, I couldn't be more proud. It was one of those moments that reminded me that when you show up with dedication and deliver quality work, people do take notice regardless of where you come from.
Absolutely. And just taking sort of another step on from the previous question, we've talked about how your journey started out in Manila and through to Brussels. And in that time, you've obviously had to navigate a lot of male-dominated boardrooms, and you've been involved in a lot of global cyber programs. What was one of the hardest challenges you faced within that space, and how do you think it shaped your journey as a leader?
I believe this question touches on the elephant in the room, which is the glass ceiling that women, minority, and single parents often face. And being part of these multiple minority groups, such as a woman, Asian in Europe, being single parent, can feel isolating at times. But I don't necessarily see this as a challenge. It's simply part of my life existence. And over the 25 years in the workforce, I've learned that quality work transcends gender, race, and industry. And a bit of luck and perseverance, the right people will recognize and value that contribution.
Yeah, 100%. And was there sort of any key moments that you maybe can elaborate on, or any decisions that propelled you into that sort of global security leadership, say specifically at Bridgestone, for example?
So if we talk about my role in Bridgestone, so before I joined the company, I had a chance to co-develop and teach a bachelor program in the applied computer science in KDG College University in Antwerp, with a special focus on cross-cultural competence. That experience really opened my eyes on how much I enjoy teaching and how important it is to me to stay connected with education alongside my professional career. And what really drew me to Bridgestone was their incredible support for that balance. They've allowed me to dedicate 20% of my working time to continue to teach in KDG, and even gave me the autonomy and trust to manage my program the way I believed I would have more impact, or the most impact. And that kind of flexibility, paired with Bridgestone's strong culture of quality and service, made it a perfect fit. And on top of that, I was excited also to bring the wealth of information security skills that I have from the finance industry to the manufacturing industry, which was clearly ready to take that step into maturing its security landscape, especially through standards like TSACs. And looking back, joining Bridgestone was really a clear and easy decision. And if I could honestly turn back time, I would still choose it again without any hesitation.
Good to hear. And look, as a Filipina within STEM sector and also as a single mum, how did you navigate the many stereotypes? And were there any strategies that you adopted that helped you carve out your own path, within cyber or career along the way?
Yeah. I've learned that over time, the consistency and quality of work, speak louder than any stereotype. I've never let labels define me, nor I did have the time to, bother with stereotype, luckily. And instead, I just continued working, showing up, and my results and, how I carry myself tell the story. And that mindset has been key in carving my path in cybersecurity. Another big part of it has been also building a strong support system. I had amazing mentors, like former managers, former teachers who believed in me. And I've leaned on peers that I've met along the way, from classmates, former colleagues, and of course, my allies, my friends, my girlfriends, my mom groups, and especially my own mom, who's been my biggest cheerleaders. And having that network makes a huge difference, especially when you're balancing work and parenting. And it really comes down to managing your time wisely, knowing your priorities, and also sometimes learning to say no when you need to. And honestly, embracing my identity as a Filipina has also been empowering. It gives me this unique lens to see the human side of cybersecurity. Because of this culture and my own subcultures as well, I would study how, people behave, what motivates them, what makes, systems really work. And that diversity of thought and empathy is so important in this cybersecurity field. And I think it's one of the strongest assets I bring in the table. And lastly, I also want to highlight lifelong learning. You have to have the drive to keep learning new things and be humble enough to understand that, you can never know it all, that you should always have this, hunger for knowing new things that are coming in the market.
And look, many leaders do struggle to balance that personal and professional sort of split. Has there been anything sort of that you feel has, as a working mum, maybe shaped some of the way you lead and make some of these key decisions?
Well, I think that this is quite a personal, and important question on how you can balance your personal and your professional life. And for me, the answer is simple. The kids have always been my top priority from day one. And I genuinely believe that, kids, especially in those early years, need their moms to thrive. And that belief has shaped not only my life at home, but also like how I show up as a leader. Motherhood has really taught me, how to really prioritize. I quickly realized that, time management means something completely different when you're a parent, when you don't have the luxury of wasting time or procrastinating. I have learned to work fast, work smart, and stay laser focused, because the quicker I get things done, the quicker I can go back home to my kids, which are my priority. In fact, sometimes I joke at work that it feels like a vacation in comparison when you have small kids, where you can drink your coffee, while it's still warm, go on an interrupted toilet break. And that was luxury at that time. But, in all seriousness, motherhood made me sharper. It made me more efficient, more decisive, and more relentless in the best way. It gave me that sort of emotional intelligence and empathy that I carry in every leadership role. And I think, not just of KPIs and outcomes, but about how people feel, how teams work together, and how we can, support each other as a whole human being. So yes, being a working mom has deeply influenced how I lead. It has taught me how to make every minute count, to value flexibility and trust, and to lead with both compassion and clarity. And honestly, I feel like I have to thank my kids for that.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Charmaine, and thank you for sharing. And just to finish, I guess, on this sort of particular topic, is there maybe one piece of advice that you could give to young women, or certainly anyone from underrepresented groups and backgrounds who are aspiring into sort of cybersecurity leadership or tech leadership? Yeah, what would that be?
What I would like to advise them is don't be afraid to show your true and authentic self. In an industry like cybersecurity, which often emphasizes technical skills and standard paths, I can feel, that it's very tempting to blend in and to downplay your identity or to conform to corporate expectations. But the truth is, your authenticity is your strength. I often tell my students this, but sometimes their subculture of being young, they don't see it yet. But in time, this is actually very true. Your authenticity is your strength. And being true to who you are, your background, your experiences, your perspective, this is what brings fresh thinking and innovation in the table. And cybersecurity isn't just about technology. It's about people, trust, and understanding human behavior. And your unique story adds value to that mission. So speak up, lead with confidence. Even if your voice shakes, or you have like a very soft voice, take space in the room, ask your question, and remember that leadership isn't about fitting into the mold. It's about shaping nuance for those coming after you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Really, really great points. Appreciate you sharing there. And cyber resilience is often thought as a technology, firewalls, AI, zero trust, and so on. But you speak of it being more resilience by design. So what does that mean from the people side of security?
Yeah. Yeah, I think when people hear cyber resilience, they immediately think of the tools, like you said, firewalls, encryption, AI, all the tech stuff. And yes, those are important. But for me, resilient by design really starts with people. It's about building resilience at every level. So you have the business level, the business resilience. You can take it down to team resilience, and then the level of the personal resilience. And I'm especially passionate about personal resilience, how individuals handle pressure, adapt to change, and keep showing up even when things are tough. That's often what keeps security programs running smoothly in the real world. And these days, I also think cultural intelligence, or CQ, is a huge part of that. We work so much in diverse and global environments, especially in IT and information security. And having people who can navigate across cultures, communicate clearly, and build trust, it's just as critical as any technical skill. So being resilient by design means we intentionally develop these human capabilities, not just rely on systems, because no matter how advanced your technology is, it's the people behind it who make or break your security.
No, I totally agree with you there and appreciate you sharing your perspective. And, I should imagine that you've been involved in a number of incidents and advised on it. And of course, you gained insight from your peers. So from your experience, what's the most underestimated factor that determines whether or not an organization can truly bounce back from a cyber incident, some crisis, for instance?
Yeah. So from my experience, one of the most underestimated factor in whether an organization can truly bounce back from a cyber crisis is preparation. And I mean real preparation, not just ticking boxes or doing the bare minimum. but truly committing to doing the things right from the start. It's about not cutting corners. Cyber resilience isn't something you can fake or scramble to build once something goes wrong. It has to be embedded in the culture, the processes, and the training. And it takes time and consistency and a willingness to invest upfront, even when there's no immediate crisis. And sometimes this is a real struggle in cybersecurity to convince your senior managers to provide you with budget, especially when things are going on smoothly. But beyond that technical side, one thing that really makes or breaks a response is trust, especially the trust and support from senior leadership. In high pressure moments when you're handling a crisis, you need leaders who are calm, informed, and focused. You need a culture where there's no finger pointing and no panic, just clear roles and responsibilities, strong communication, and alignment to a shared goal, which is to resolve the issue as fast as possible. I've also seen that some organizations get stuck focusing too much on who caused the problem instead of how to fix it. And that mindset can be paralyzing. The most resilient teams I've worked with are the ones who stay solution focused and collaborative. Because in the middle of a crisis, unity and clarity matter more than blame. So, yes, preparation, integrity in your process, leadership support, and no blame culture. Those are hidden strengths that really determine whether a company can bounce back or fall apart when the pressure is on.
No, I appreciate you sharing. And one thing that perhaps really stands out is that no blame culture aspect. I know it was something that leaders in the industry were really pushing a few years ago, but it's something that's still not talked about enough. And I certainly feel that it's dropped off over the last 24 months. And there are more so that the blame culture, especially with some of the incidents that have happened in most recent times. And with all that in mind, regulations such as ISO 27001, NIS2, TSAC, as you mentioned earlier, they're tightening. And of course, you mentioned aligning with leaders, C-suite in the business. So what role do these regulations play in helping you to drive alignment with leadership?
Yeah. So when it comes to regulation, like the ISO 27001, the International Information Security Standard, NIS2, and TSACs tightening across the globe, a lot of people immediately think of ticking the boxes. And honestly, most folks are allergic to that phrase. It sounds tedious, bureaucratic, and a bit disconnected from what the reality really is. But here's the thing, sometimes you do need to start with that exercise. Why? Because ticking the boxes starts to help you understand what your baseline is. You need to understand where you are today and what controls you have in place and where the gaps are and what risks you are managing. It's like taking a snapshot of your security posture before you can build something stronger. And this part isn't easy because being comfortable facing your weakness head on is not, culturally acceptable to some. And that can be tricky, especially when your team doesn't all speak the same language in terms of interpreting reports. Some people tend to focus only on what went wrong, while others highlight on what's working well only without aligning, everyone's criteria and agreeing on how to interpret these findings. It's hard to have an honest conversation. So one of the first things a leader need to do is to calibrate this team mindset, to agree on definitions, to share common understanding, to share, different attribution or attributes to different layers of reporting, and create a culture where both strengths and gaps are acknowledged openly. That's the foundation of a resilient culture, I think. And once you have this baseline and alignment, compliance stops being a checkbox exercise and becomes a a springboard for continuous improvement. And you build resilience by embedding those controls into daily work, empowering teams to adapt and respond, not just meet a standard on paper. So the key is to start with compliance, but don't stop there. Use it as a tool to foster trust, transparency, and build a culture that is ready for whatever comes next.
And just expanding on that a little more, Charmaine, in terms of cross-cultural leadership. You've led programs across Europe, Asia, America. You've obviously had a huge amount of experience. What's the biggest lesson you may be able to share about leading effectively across all of these different cultures?
Yeah, so having led programs across Europe, Asia, and Americas, one big lesson stands out to me. There is no one size fits all solution when it comes to leading across different cultures. Every culture and even subculture comes with its own attitudes, ethics, and ways of adapting. What works with one might not work with another. So one of the trickiest part is figuring out the dynamics of adaptation. Also, who adapts to whom, and how do you communicate effectively, both verbally and non-verbally? These things can vary a lot. For example, some cultures prefer direct communication, while others rely heavily on context or subtle cues. Now, even working with Bridgestone, you have two polar opposites. Your colleagues in Tokyo, in Japan, which has, more high context form of communication, where it's always nuanced, or they do have a lot of nonverbal cues, versus your colleagues from Americas, which is more low context. They're very verbal. And sometimes there's just a clash. And you realize it really becomes a case by case scenario. And because of this complexity, what I've found, what works best is building a relationship based on trust. So if you take the culture map from Erinmere, for example, one of the dimension there is trust. And there are two poles. One is task-based, you do a good job and therefore I trust you, or relationship-based, I know you and therefore I trust you. Now, my advice usually that I give to my students is always go for relationship-based trust. Instead of assuming, processes or protocols will fix everything, focus on connecting with people on a human level, understanding their values, their perspectives, and what motivates them. When you invest on those relationships and show genuine respect for cultural differences, it creates a foundation of trust. And trust is what allows diverse teams to collaborate effectively, innovate, and overcome challenges together, even when things get tough. So leadership across cultures require flexibility, empathy, and a commitment to learning from every interaction. It's less about rigid strategies and more about building authentic connections.
As the old saying goes, trust is a universal language. And I mean, just picking up on one of the things you talked about earlier, you talked about cross-cultural intelligence being a superpower for security leaders. How does that sort of translate into maybe better decision making and stronger teams?
Yes, so I do often say that cross cultural intelligence is a superpower for security leaders, and I really mean it. Security is a fast moving, highly innovative space, and innovation thrives in diverse environment. But diversity on its own isn't enough. What makes the difference is how you understand and manage that diversity. When building a strong team or making critical decision, it's important to start with the objective first, then shape your strategy around that. From there, you can think about which cultural profiles and perspective would be best to support those goals. That's where cross-cultural intelligence comes in. It helps you match talent not just to a job description, but also to a team dynamic. a regional context, or even a stakeholder culture. And one of the biggest pitfalls I've seen in DEI efforts is just hiring for diversity without understanding the deeper layers. When you skip that crucial first step, thinking about the fit, the context, the team readiness, you risk placing someone in a situation that is not set up for their success. And unfortunately, that can open the door to misunderstanding, resistance, or even criticism, which isn't fair to the individual or the team. Now, another important point is self awareness. I often start my class with personality tests to make my students understand, that everything begins with being aware of yourself, with your genuine understanding of your own cultural dynamics, your subcultures as well. And it leads to better decision making, stronger collaboration, and a more resilient, inclusive team. That's where the real power of cross cultural intelligence shows up, not just in hiring, but how you build trust, solve problems, and lead people from all walks of life.
And with diversity and inclusion are often discussed, and we thankfully have had much more of a light shone on it as a key topic of importance that clearly needs to be addressed. Certainly in more recent years, especially. I think sadly it still feels like it's rarely being executed within tech and of course cyber by proxy as much as it should. And maybe the markets have been a little slower. This will start to be implemented more and more over coming years. What concrete steps can leaders take to integrate DE&I, into security programs and culture?
Yeah. From my perspective as a cybersecurity expert and also a cross cultural competence lecturer, I think that diversity and inclusion are, not really talked a lot about in cybersecurity. And they're not always acted on, even if they are. And I think part of that is because cybersecurity itself is still evolving so quickly, and there are real knowledge gaps in the field. And sometimes when you're building a team or a program under pressure, you simply don't have the luxury of time of prioritizing DEI because the talent pool feels limited. But here's the thing, if we truly want to integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion into our security program, we need to stop thinking of DE&I as something separate or optional. It has to be built into the foundation, not just who we hire, but how we train, how we communicate, and how we build our teams. So, what can leaders actually do? So, first, invest in training and awareness, not just on technical skills, but on cultural competence, cross cultural competence, unconscious bias, and inclusive communication. These soft skills have a direct impact on how well a team functions, especially in high pressure environments like cybersecurity. Second, create intentional team building opportunities that bring people together across backgrounds and roles. Have this environment of people getting to know each other on a personal basis. This helps foster empathy and understanding also the values of your colleagues, which in turn strengthens collaboration and resilience. And finally, leaders need to be realistic. If the talent isn't readily available, we have to create it through mentorship, upskilling, internships, and partnerships with educational institutions such as KDG, for example. We can't wait for the perfect candidate to show up. We have to help develop the next generation of diverse talent ourselves. So, yes, it is a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity because when DE&I is done right, it doesn't just tick a box. It builds stronger, smarter, and a more human-centered security program.
I really appreciate you bringing up such crucial points, and it's something that we still feels overlooked. And a platform such as this, help to shine a light upon it. Now, you said obviously trust and reputation is like currency. I know we've gone over it slightly, but in what other ways can leaders earn, maintain, and more importantly, protect that trust with both their teams and, of course, external business partners?
Yep. Yes, I really believe that trust and reputation are a form of currency. They take time to build, but can be lost in a moment. That's why we do have a reputational risk in risk management, for example. And for leaders, especially in cybersecurity and risk, trust is everything. Without it, even the best strategy or the most secure system can fall apart. So, how do you earn and protect that trust? You start by changing the culture. Trust isn't something you can enforce or write into a policy. It has to be modeled, lived, and reinforced every day. Within teams, it starts with transparency and consistency. People need to know that their leaders are clear, fair, and reliable. You follow through in what you say. You own your mistakes. Everyone can have, a mistake once in a while and learn from that. And you give credit where it's due. And you create a space where your team feels safe to speak up, ask questions, and even challenge ideas. That's what builds long term trust. In business partnerships, it's very similar. It's not just about contracts and compliance checklists, it's about mutual respect, clear communication, and doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Especially in cybersecurity, where third party risk is such a big issue. Partners need to know they can rely on your integrity as much as your technology. And trust is also something you protect actively by staying ethical, by being vigilant about reputational risks, and by creating an environment when people understand that reputation isn't managed by PR. It is earned through everyday behavior. And yes, change the culture, build a culture of openness, accountability, and respect, and trust will definitely follow.
No, that's great. Appreciate you sharing. And look, security leadership is obviously relentless. How do you maintain energy and focus without burning out? And what advice would you give others facing similar pressures?
That's such an important question, Warren, because burnt out is real, especially in cybersecurity. The pace is fast, the stakes are high, and the pressure is always on and can wear you down if you're not careful. One simple tool that has helped me and that I often recommend is to make two lists, one for activities that drain your energy and one for those that give your energy. And be mindful on how your day went. If you experienced activities that drain your energy, be mindful that you do something for yourself that give you energy so that you could never be burnt out and you always can go back to negative zero, not negative but even positive. This sounds basic, but it's incredibly powerful for building self-awareness. And when you can really see what tasks or people or habits leave you feeling depleted and which ones re-energize and motivate you, it becomes easier to set boundaries and make intentional choices on how you spend your time and attention. For me personally, I've learned that I need to protect my creative and reflective time, whether that's through quiet moments of faith, being taxi mommy with my kids, or even just a coffee chat with my friends. Those are small things, but they keep me grounded and connected to my why. And honestly, as leaders, we also need to be okay with not doing everything ourselves. Delegation isn't a weakness, it's trust. It's empowering others so that the whole team can grow and not just carry the weight alone. So if you're in a high pressure role, my advice would be get to know yourself, protect your energy, and give yourself permission to pause. Leadership is not about running on empty, it's about being present, intentional, and sustainable over the long run.
So, cyber leaders face AI disruption, evolving regulations, and of course, global threat. With that in mind, why are gatherings like the Cyber Leaders Summit crucial for leaders today?
Honestly, I think events like Cyber Leader Summit are more important now than ever. And for me, it really comes down to five keywords: pause, benchmark, socialize, recalibrate, and learn. So, first, we need to pause. In cybersecurity, like I've mentioned, we're always reacting, always moving so fast. In fact, we rarely get the time or space to step back and reflect. Summits like these give leaders a moment to breathe, to zoom out, and to think strategically. Then there's the need to benchmark. It's one of those things, when you work in isolation, but when you're in a room with peers from across industries and geographies, you get to see where you stand, what's working, what's not working, what are others doing differently. And that kind of insight is gold. Now, the third is socializing. Socializing is another piece we don't talk about enough. Cybersecurity leadership, can feel lonely at times. You have a CISO role, which is a one-man show, or in my case, an information security risk manager, which is just a one FTE. And that sometimes can feel lonely, especially when you're making tough calls. And being able to connect with others who are facing the same pressure builds a sense of community and shared resilience. And it reminds us that we are not alone in this one. The fourth is recalibration. Recalibration is also key. After hearing new perspectives and seeing what's in the horizon, whether it's AI risks, regulatory shifts, or geopolitical threats, you're able to reassess your own roadmap and priorities with fresh eyes. And finally, we learn. We share our stories, we challenge our assumptions, and we leave not just with takeaways, but we were with a renewed sense of purpose and direction. So, yes, these gatherings are crucial. They're not just about keeping up, they're about staying grounded, staying connected, and being future ready.
No, appreciate you sharing the perspective there. And is one of the things that really stands out for us as strategic partners to Cyber Leaders Summit is encouraging that cross-sector collaboration, community cohesion, and of course, plugging the gaps in professional networks. Because as you mentioned, security leadership, it is sometimes can be a silo, and it sometimes can be a lonely journey for leaders. And that's why we feel that these summits are really important. Now, the summit's theme is resilience and leadership. From your perspective, how should executives redefine resilience for 2025 and beyond?
Redefining resilience for future means moving beyond the traditional idea of just bouncing back. In today's fast changing world, especially in cybersecurity, resilience is about being adaptable, agile, and deeply connected to the people around you. So, three things stand out for me as essential pillars for resilience moving forward. And those are cultural intelligence, trust, and openness. So, first, cultural intelligence, or CQ, like I said, is a true superpower for cyber leaders. And leaders need to understand and respect diverse perspectives and ways of working, especially as teams become more global and virtual. Being culturally intelligent helps leaders anticipate challenges before they escalate and fosters collaboration across differences. Next is trust. Without trust, teams won't share critical information, partnerships won't hold, and organizations can't respond effectively to crisis. Leaders must build and maintain trust intentionally through transparency, accountability, and by showing up authentically. And finally, openness by being willing to listen and to learn and to admit what you don't know. In a world full of emerging technologies, unknown threats, and shifting regulations, no one really has all the answers. So, resilient leaders cultivate an environment where feedback flows freely and innovation thrives. So, for 2025 and beyond, resilience isn't just about surviving disruption, it's about thriving through connection, cultural awareness, and genuine leadership.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing there. And as you mentioned, one of the biggest benefits, of course, is that peer-to-peer learning. So what conversations do you hope to spark amongst CISOs and security leaders from different industries?
So I hope to spark an open and honest conversation about real cyber challenges beyond the polished presentations or, hidden sales agenda, where leaders share genuine experiences on topics like AI risk, compliance, and team resilience. We all learn faster if we are, sharing in a more open and honest way.
And you're obviously speaking at the summit, Charmaine. Is there any particular insights that you hope attendees will take away? And if you were attending the summit as a non-speaker, what do you think is the best way to get the most from these events?
So, what excites me the most about speaking at the summit is this incredible opportunity to connect with such a diverse group of leaders from, people from different industries, cultures, and backgrounds. But I'm most interested, of course, in connecting to cybersecurity leaders in the manufacturing field. Now, I'm genuinely curious and eager to hear their stories, learn from their experiences, and create space where real dialogue happens. And hopefully, there's an openness and trust in this summit, to have this space of dialogue. And if there's one key insight I hope attendees take away, is this: quality work transcends all boundaries, whether cultural, gender, or racial, or whatever subculture you have. Excellence in cybersecurity and leadership in resilience is universal, and it's not defined by where you're coming from or what you look like, but by your dedication, integrity, and impact you bring into your role. And I want everyone to walk away reminded that diversity isn't just a tick in the box, but a powerful driver of innovation and strength. And if I were attending the summit as a participant rather than a speaker, my advice would be to engage actively and seek genuine connections, because it's easy to fall into the habit of just listening passively and scrolling through, what's happening in the office at work. But the real value comes from asking questions, sharing your experiences, and building relationship with peers. These moments of authentic dialogue often spark the most meaningful insights and open doors to future collaboration.
Well, as we come to the back end of the episode, is there anything you can share more on your own vision and mission and purpose going forward? What does the future hold for you?
Absolutely. So, as you can see, my vision is really about creating a more resilient and inclusive digital world, one where security is a force that empowers people to truly thrive and be their authentic self. And my mission focuses on, of course, advancing information security, risk management, and resilience, but with a strong people first approach. For me, it's about bridging cultures, industries, and communities and mentoring the next generation of diverse leaders who will carry this work forward. And at my core, my purpose is deeply personal. As a Filipina, as a working mom, and a global security leader, I want to use my own journey to break down barriers, build trust, and create meaningful connections. It's about showing others that no matter where you come from or what challenges you face, you can lead, inspire, and really make a difference.
And for anybody that wants to stay connected beyond the episode, obviously LinkedIn, we're familiar. Is there anywhere else that anyone can reach out to you?
No, I'd like to keep it simple and straightforward. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm also quite conservative with my online presence. So if you happen to be in Belgium, I'd love to meet up in person over a cup of coffee and have a real conversation.
Amazing. Well, Charmaine, it's been a really inspirational episode. It really has. And on behalf of Warren and myself, we'd like to say a huge thank you. There's no doubt that the community will have found a huge amount of value in today's episode. People want to continue the discussion for more sustained engagement. As always, we invite you to join the Secure CyberConnect community, where we offer a range of solutions for tech and security professionals at no cost. Expansive community access, mutual mentoring, online networking, amazing and exclusive interviews such as this one, panel discussions, live events and masterclasses coming throughout 25 and beyond. We'd just like to say a huge thank you, Charmaine, and thank you again, everybody.